to my cave abode. I couldn't find Bran anywhere. Just as I was about to go search for him, I saw a disciple rushing towards me in a panic. Senior sister, something terrible has happened. Your spirit beast has gone berserk and is trying to violate junior sister Daphne's purity. You must go see immediately. My mind exploded with a buzz. Are you sure you didn't get it backwards, with Bran's looks? Isn't it more likely Daphne wanted to defile Bran? I had a million doubts in my heart, but still rushed to Daphne's cave dwelling. She was weeping pearly tears, leaning against Lucian's chest. Lucian held Daphne with aching tenderness, then glared furiously at Bran. As for Bran, he wore an expression of utter despair, his eyes rolling skyward. Seeing him like this, my anxious heart eased slightly. As long as he was unharmed, nothing else mattered. What's going on? I subtly shielded Bran behind me without changing my expression. When Daphne saw me arrive, tears immediately streamed down her face as if she'd suffered the greatest injustice. Senior sister, you must stand up for me. Just now Bran actually tried to assault me, and I was nearly powerless to stop him, even if he's your spirit beast. Senior sister, he can't bully others like this. I'm an innocent girl, and my reputation was almost ruined by him. Lucian was heartbroken and shouted at me, Isla, hand over that fox if you know what's good for you, otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. I was almost laughing in anger, and Bran was clearly even angrier than me. Assault you, even if something happened between us. It seems like you'd be the one taking advantage, wouldn't you? How desperate would I have to be to harass you? Clearly, you lured me here, and when your seduction failed, you resorted to slandering me. After Bran finished speaking, I finally understood what had happened. I had long suspected Daphne had feelings for Bran, but I never imagined she would be so brazen, shamelessly attempting to seduce him without any regard for decency, and she's supposed to be a noble-born lady of high standing. What a disgrace to her family's honor. You claim Bran assaulted you. Do you have any evidence? He appeared in my cave. Isn't that proof enough? Otherwise, why would he come here for no reason? Bran flushed red. That was clearly because Bran stammered for a long time but couldn't come up with a proper explanation. I looked at him suspiciously. Could he possibly have some leverage over Daphne? Enough with your excuses, you damned fox. Today, I'll execute you right here. Lucian roared and lunged at Bran. My gaze sharpened as I swiftly drew my sword to block his attack. Isla, are you deliberately favoring him? The truth of the matter hasn't been clarified yet. Of course I'll protect my partner, not a spirit beast, but a partner. I've never treated him as my possession. Bran has helped me so much. I believe we have an equal relationship. Bran stood beside me, staring blankly. No one had ever protected him like this before. I got into a fight with Lucian. His cultivation was still as profound as ever, even without awakening the memories of being the crown prince of the 9 heavens. He was already incredibly strong, but I am no longer the Isla from my past life who could only be at his mercy. In this lifetime, I have never allowed myself to slack in my cultivation. The effort I've put in is several times that of others. With Bran's guidance, my cultivation has also greatly improved. In an instant, Lucian and I were locked in a fierce back-and-forth battle. Lucian looked at me in surprise, never expecting that I could match him blow for blow. This caused his gaze toward me to change, no longer seeing me as an insignificant ant, but as a true rival. In my past life, when had he ever looked at me with such an expression? Indeed, the only way to avoid becoming someone else's plaything is to make yourself strong. Both Lucian and I stepped back several paces, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Neither of us could completely defeat the other. In the end, our master intervened to separate us. Nonsense. The rules of the Flowing Cloud sect strictly forbid disciples from privately provoking conflicts. Have you all forgotten, Master? It was senior sister's spirit beast that harassed me first. The master wearily rubbed his forehead. Since you two refused to stop arguing, let's clearly see who was truly at fault here. After speaking, the master formed hand seals and conjured a mirror of retrospection. Daphne's pupils constricted. In the mirror of retrospection, Bran had barely stepped into Daphne's cave abode when she pressed herself against him without a word. She clung to Bran desperately, refusing to let go. Left with no choice, Bran had to forcefully shake her off. Then Daphne viciously tore her own clothes and began shouting that Bran had assaulted her. This isn't true. Daphne defended herself fearfully, failing to notice Lucian's darkening expression beside her. I said leisurely, the Luyun sect's retrospection mirror is a treasure passed down from ancient times, comprehending both the living and the dead. How could it possibly be false? Daphne's heart was ashen with despair. She never expected the Cloudstride sect's leader to possess such a treasure, or did she anticipate events unfolding this way? In the end, her master cast an utterly disappointed glance at her and withheld a year's allowance. She was then ordered to reflect on her mistakes in the discipline hall. The disciples sneered, and they said she was some little princess from Penglai continent. Who knew she'd be so shameless as to seduce the head disciple's spirit beast? Exactly, I used to think she was gentle and kind, but who would have guessed she's so venomous at heart? Daphne didn't dare look at Lucian's expression. It's not like that, brother Lucian. Please let me explain. All she got in response was Lucian's angry back. Does it hurt? Bran looked at my wounds with heartache, carefully applying medicine for me. It doesn't hurt. This battle has actually taught me a lot. I'm not lying. An exhilarating battle is absolutely something that can teach people valuable lessons. Why did you fight for me? Why do you believe in me so much? Bran suddenly looked at me with reddened eyes, interrupting my train of thought. I already told you, you're my comrade. I know your character. You could never do something like that, so of course I'd stand up for you. Bran's amber eyes gazed at me, suddenly brimming with an emotion I couldn't comprehend, tender yet lingering, completely opposite to how Lucian had looked at me in my past life. Under such a gaze, my heart began pounding violently. Wait, so why exactly were you in Daphne's yard? Bran said angrily. It's because she told me you got injured during training today and were recuperating in her cave. I panicked and rushed over without thinking. So Bran fell for it because he was worried about me. While finding it amusing, a warm feeling also surged through my heart. Are you so worried about me because you like me? Bran froze. Then even the roots of his ears turned a faint pink. The next second, a foxtail wrapped around my waist. You've been so kind to me. I naturally have feelings for you. After saying this, Bran looked at me expectantly, bewitched by his beauty. I blurted out without thinking, I feel the same way about you. Instantly, the corners of Bran's eyes turned a bewitching red, as if he was struggling to restrain something, his breathing growing noticeably quicker. Then, an expression of unbearable longing appeared on his face. Having lived 2 lives, how could I not know what this meant? Yet I pushed him away in panic. Do foxes just enter heat whenever they feel like it? Bran looked somewhat aggrieved. We fox spirits express our feelings most directly, without all the convoluted ways you humans have. Once we've chosen you, we simply can't restrain our affection. But that still doesn't mean you can just. I wanted to refuse, but it was already too late. A massive foxtail blocked my escape route. Isla, you were the one who provoked me first. No, wait, don't touch there. Are foxes really born to be so naturally skilled at this? In short, that night I felt as if floating on clouds, reaching a state of perfect harmony between body and soul. I kept unconsciously murmuring, no, with my mouth, while Bran continued thrusting relentlessly. What a wicked fox. After that day, I finally formed a bond with Bran, training with him during the day, and being trained by him at night. I feel like if this continues, I'm going to fall apart. But looking into Bran's watery eyes, I couldn't bear to refuse him. Fine, let him have his way. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed. The sex grand competition finally began. As long as ultimate victory is achieved, one can inherit the entire Luyun sect. All disciples and their spirit beasts became eager to try. Only Mirabelle stood alone. At this moment, Mirabelle had sunken eyes, pale skin, and not a trace of vitality, yet her spirit beast Lucian stood by Daphne's side, becoming Daphne's spirit beast. Yes, Mirabelle was ultimately forced to sever her contract with Lucian. Year ago, no one knew how it happened, but Daphne suddenly got poisoned, and as if by cruel coincidence, only Mirabelle's heart's blood could cure the poison. Lucian mercilessly extracted Mirabelle's heart blood, then forcibly compelled her to break the contract, having lost her spiritual roots and suffered severe internal injuries. Mirabelle had now become an ordinary mortal. She was even weaker than a typical mortal. Her tragic story drew sighs throughout the entire sect, with even the sect master continuously lamenting. Even at this point, Mirabelle still says, I was born for Lucian. Even if he wanted my life, I would give it to him. For hopeless, I shook my head. Mirabelle had completely lost her mind. After giving so much, it was utterly unrealistic for her to give up on Lucian. Everything now depends on her own fate. I focused all my attention on the sect competition. After forming a bond with Bran, our coordination improved. My cultivation was already advanced, and now no one could stand against me. Until I faced Daphne and Lucian, I knew that defeating them would make me the next leader of the Flowing Clouds sect. Senior sister, after you, Daphne said coldly. We moved almost simultaneously. After one round, I couldn't help but feel shocked. Daphne's cultivation has actually progressed so quickly. Just how much spiritual energy has Lucian been transferring to her? How deeply devoted he is. Even after Daphne's true nature was exposed last time, he still selflessly gives to her without complaint. But I'm not inferior either. No matter how Daphne attacks, I can easily counter it. Her cultivation was all forcibly built up by Lucian. She has abundant spiritual power but severely lacks real combat experience. I'm different. I spar with Bran daily, so I have both cultivation and combat skills. Before long, I had drained most of Daphne's spiritual power, and her techniques weakened. I seized the moment and knocked her to the ground. Lucian tried to stop me, but Bran held him back relentlessly. Damn fox, get lost. Lucian found Bran extremely troublesome. Despite his weak spiritual power, he managed to block him with bizarrely unpredictable movements. You lost. I raised my sword and sent Daphne flying under her disbelieving gaze. Daphne landed heavily on the ground, spitting out a mouthful of blood. The final winner of the sect competition, Isla, as long as Daphne is knocked off the stage, that counts as a loss. At this moment, I joyfully embraced Bran. 3 years of effort have not been in vain. In my previous life at this time, I had already become a cripple who could no longer cultivate, but in this life I've reversed my destiny. Bran held me gently, his eyes brimming with love. Isla, you've always been my pride. How is this possible? I didn't lose. Daphne couldn't accept the result, murmuring to herself. Suddenly, Daphne's eyes widened. In shock, staring in horror at the long sword piercing through her chest, Mirabelle was laughing wildly and triumphantly, even tears streaming from her eyes. You're finally dead, finally dead. I've waited so long for this chance. Ha 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 ha, now that you're gone, brother Lucian will be mine. No one could have imagined that Mirabelle would kill Daphne right before everyone's eyes. With a desperate wail, Lucian violently sent Mirabelle flying. Daphne, Daphne, don't be afraid. I'm here. Lucian continuously channeled spiritual energy into Daphne's body, but ultimately Daphne still lost all signs of life. Daphne, Lucian roared in agony with bloodshot eyes, and then an incredibly powerful energy surge suddenly emanated from his body. Oh no, run! I grabbed Bran and bolted, because I knew this scene all too well. Lucian was about to awaken. The wind rose and clouds surged, with lightning flashing. In an instant, Lucian transformed into a black dragon. Thunder rumbled across the sky, interspersed with blinding golden light. As the immortals welcomed their crown prince, everyone was stunned by this sudden turn of events. Mirabelle shouted excitedly, Brother Lucian, now you know, I'm the one who loves you the most. Her face flushed with excitement as she fantasized about becoming the crown princess of the 9 heavens. After all, in her view, her actions were exactly the same as mine in my previous life. It was after Lucian overcame his tribulation and ascended that he suddenly awakened, realizing I was his true love. So now, Lucian should come to recognize her virtues. Yet, Lucian coldly declared, You wretch, I'll make you pay for Daphne's life with your own. Lucian swung his dragon tail, brutally shattering Mirabelle's body. The excitement on her face didn't even have time to fade. Witnessing her tragic state, I couldn't help but sigh. In his previous life, Lucian didn't have a sudden awakening. I knew all too well that continuing like this would eventually lead to my brutal death at Lucian's hands, so I racked my brains to expose Daphne's true nature in front of Lucian. Greatly disappointed, Lucian then transferred his affections to me instead, but in this lifetime, Mirabelle only knows how to give endlessly, which Lucian simply takes for granted as her duty. Not only did she not expose Daphne, but she also killed Daphne, making her forever remain as the pure white moonlight in Lucian's heart. This only deepened Lucian's love for Daphne. Therefore, of course, the first person Lucian wanted to kill was Mirabelle. I've warned Mirabelle countless times, but she never learns her lesson. This outcome can only be said to be the consequence of her own actions. Hypocritical mortals, you killed Daphne. I'll make every last one of you pay with your lives. Lucian's draconic form flickered ominously among the thunderclouds, exuding overwhelming intimidation. With just a single tail swipe, he destroyed over half of the floating cloud sect structures. Lucian, as the crown Prince of the Nine Heavens, how can you treat human lives as worthless weeds? I barely steadied myself and demanded, how dare a mere ant like you speak to me in such a manner? You're truly courting death. Lucian exhaled a breath of dragon fire. Countless cultivators wailed as they scrambled away, while those who couldn't evade were instantly reduced to ashes. Oh no, if Lucian goes berserk, I fear the entire cultivation world will be buried with him. Perish, all of you. 5. My pupils contracted as I saw the dragon's tail about to sweep toward me. Is there really no escaping the fate of death? I'm so unwilling to accept this. In this lifetime, I've worked hard enough and even met a lover who treasures me like a precious gem. Compared to the crown prince of noble birth, I was still just an ant. Heaven's way, how unjust you are. Just when I thought death was certain, suddenly, 9 massive foxtails appeared before me, instantly blocking Lucian's dragon form. I looked up in shock. Before my eyes appeared a pure white 9-tailed fox, and with it here, Lucian's attacks couldn't harm me in the slightest. Bran, I exclaimed in shock, that fox whom everyone thought was just a pretty face turned out to be an ancient divine beast, the celestial 9-tailed fox. You are, Emperor Bran. Lucian's shocked voice echoed across the sky. The 9-tailed fox lazily remarked, it's me, little black snake. You're still as temperamental as before your tribulation, such a disgrace to the 9 heavens. So, Bran was actually the Emperor of Qingqiu. His status is equal to that of the Heavenly Emperor of the 9 heavens. Now that he has returned from tribulation, he is likely even stronger than the Heavenly Emperor. You injured this sovereign's consort and showed contempt for all living beings across the 3 realms. Even the Crown Prince cannot escape responsibility for such crimes, can he? Lucian transformed back into human form, carefully putting on an ingratiating smile for Bran. There was no trace left of the earlier demeanor that seemed ready to overturn the 3 realms for the sake of a loved one. In the end, he slunk back to the celestial realm in disgrace. Why so quiet, Isla, my dear wife? Bran pinched my cheek and teased. I slapped away his fox paw. I thought you were just a weak and pitiful fox, but turns out you have such a powerful background. Tell me, why have you been hiding this from me? Bran said pitifully, I wasn't hiding it from you, I really just regained these memories myself. How would I dare deceive my wife? I was utterly speechless. The next second, Bran pulled me into his embrace. No matter who I am, I would never force you to do anything you dislike. You are Isla first, and only then Bran's wife. I will always support you in whatever you choose to do. Bran and I exchanged a glance. Very well, then, I shall humbly request your majesty's guidance from now on. 30 years later, I ascended to godhood. Upon arriving in the divine realm, Bran couldn't wait to propose to me. The betrothal gifts were so abundant they nearly emptied the entire Qingqiu mountain. Throughout all realms, none failed to envy me for finding such a fine husband, yet I returned Bran's betrothal gifts. If I stand by your side now, people will say I'm reaching above my station. Would your majesty be willing to wait until the day I can rightfully stand beside you through my own merits? Bran smiled gently. Of course, I'd wait for you no matter how long it takes, and so, even after becoming an immortal, I never dared to slack off. Cultivation became my top priority. Bran couldn't help but complain aggrievedly. Madam, even if we're not getting married for now, you can't ignore me like this. I've been left alone in an empty room for 3 whole days. TSK, only 3 days. Yet he makes it sound like 3 years. Just then, a disciple came to report from outside the door, saying the Crown Prince of the 9 heavens requested an audience with me. Yes, requested to see me, not Bran. What's that long worm doing here? Bran said unhappily, as I stepped outside. Lucian's eyes instantly reddened upon seeing me. Isla, I was startled. What's with this overly familiar form of address? In this lifetime, I'm not really familiar with Lucian, am I? Isla, I've remembered everything. You've sacrificed so much for me. You do care about me, don't you? Come away with me. This time I will definitely make you my crown princess. I froze, realizing Lucian had recalled his past life. Help, I really don't want to get involved with this hot-tempered maniac. My waist suddenly tightened as Bran appeared with a dark expression. Lucian, it seems you no longer wish to be crown prince. daring to covet this monarch's queen. As he spoke, 9 enormous tails materialized behind Bran. Lucian instinctively took several steps back. Isla, you love me. It was Emperor Bran who forced you, wasn't it? Just as Bran was about to lose his temper, I stopped him. Lucian, do you know the biggest difference between you and Bran? It's that Bran respects me and treats me as an equal, but you, from beginning to end, have only treated me as your possession. I've had enough of playing this tragic love game with you. If you ever dare set foot in Qingqiu again, I will show you no mercy. Lucian's face turned pale. I never saw him again after that. 100 years later, I ascended to godhood, held a grand wedding with Bran. In this lifetime, I've finally truly taken control of my own destiny. The end. Story 2. In my previous life, I unlocked my supernatural ability. I led my husband to survive arduously. When the zombies came, my husband pushed me towards the zombie horde. But in this life, I was reborn, facing the upcoming zombie horde. I plan to keep my mouth shut. You two so-called lovers, just enjoy yourselves. You won't be able to survive in the end. 1. On January 7, 2042, the end of the world came, and the zombie virus swept across the earth. My husband Jonathan, his friends, and I hid from place to place, living in dire straits every day. I was so highly nervous that after being scratched and infected by a zombie, I awakened my supernatural ability. This ability allowed me to sense the number of zombies within a radius of 2 kilometers. With the help of this ability, we managed to avoid large groups of zombies all the way and headed towards the safe base announced on the radio. However, during the journey, when I could sense the zombies, it was already too late to choose another route. That large-scale zombie horde was gradually approaching and surrounded us. During the battle, our vehicle was damaged. Some people kept throwing out supplies to lighten the load. Others, including me and Jonathan, were fending off the invasion of the zombies. Just as I split open the head of the zombie in front of me with the axe in my hand, I suddenly felt a force behind me push me hard. I rolled out of the vehicle and fell, bleeding from the head. When I looked at the person who had harmed me, it turned out to be my husband Jonathan, the person I slept beside every night. His mouth opened and closed, and I could clearly see what he said. You're already useless. In the end, I was overwhelmed by the zombie horde and was completely devoured, but I didn't die immediately. Instead, I became a wandering soul and followed Jonathan all the way. They only drove 3 kilometers and safely reached the safe base. I could have survived too. Just before I was about to disappear, I saw Jonathan, after getting out of the vehicle, embracing and kissing a man. This man, Natalie, was also one of Jonathan's friends. They used to call each other good brothers. In daily life, the pain, nausea, and disbelief made it hard for me to breathe. A sudden white light enveloped me and took away my consciousness. But when I woke up again, my face was covered with tears and my eyes were bloodshot. I turned my head and looked at Jonathan, who was sleeping peacefully beside me. The more I looked at him, the more he seemed like a gay man. If I looked at him one more time, I would vomit all over his face. So I was reborn. I turned over and got out of bed, and looked at the time, January 1st, 2042. There were still 5 days until the zombie outbreak. It was still in time. Everything was still in time, too. Before I left this house, I wanted to take my bank card and cash with me. I took a look at the marriage certificate. Forget it. I didn't want it. I would be a widow sooner or later anyway. Oh, right. I also transferred out all the money from the small purse that Jonathan and I shared. Damn it. I remembered that it was always me who put money in it. Who else is as much of a philanthropist as I am? However, when I was looking for the bank card, I saw a mobile phone whose screen suddenly lit up. Do you miss me? Do you want to have my big money? Say something, lazy pig. You must still be sleeping. With a beep, a transfer message of 1,000 yuan popped up. I wondered who was this unlucky guy. When I opened it, I found the note, good brother. Then I looked at the real name authentication, and it was Natalie. Then there was a flood of messages, full of foul language, and even many pornographic animated pictures. Great, so you city people call this a good brother. Huh, Jonathan, you really have the nerve. You specifically got this broken mobile phone just to secretly contact your lover. No wonder you obediently let me check the mobile phone you usually use. And even let me check WeChat and Douyin. You didn't have any good sisters or good elder sisters, and you didn't watch any beautiful women dancing or doing yoga. So you were waiting for me here. I quickly accepted the money, then I transferred it to myself. After that, I put the mobile phone back in its place and left without looking back. I left the house where I had lived for 2 years after getting married without even blinking an eye. The other things I left in that house could be considered as donations anyway. I'm not short of money in this life. I want these two gay men to also feel the pain of being bitten by zombies. You two lovers, just enjoy yourselves soon. Neither of you will be able to survive. 3. I didn't go to work and immediately went to the edge of the city. In a high-end villa apartment complex, I selected my ideal safe house. After the end of the world began, it was impossible for the safe bases established by the state between each urban area to be built quickly, even during the construction process. An excellent location was abandoned after being damaged by the zombie horde. I remember that it was at least a year and a half later that the radio dared to notify the surviving people to go to the safe base. This time, I don't want to live in constant fear anymore. The little real estate agent girl was full of enthusiasm and showed me one villa after another. In the end, I chose one on a slope. The little girl didn't understand. When I entered the house, I saw that the decoration was nice and the electrical appliances were complete. The various functions of the basic infrastructure were all in good condition. It was said that everything had just been inspected. What satisfied me the most was that there was no furniture arranged. Would have plenty of opportunities to show my abilities later, but the real estate agent kept carefully observing my expression. Sister, you must rent the one on the slope. Actually, there is another one you can take a look at. There is a really big bed in that one. I said, no. I waved my hand and said, this is the one. How much is it? She was overjoyed. Okay, sister, here, we basically rent for at least half a year, with 1 month's rent as a deposit and 6 months' rent paid in advance. Indiana total, you see, it's. I smiled and said, rent it for 2 years first, just swipe the card. After getting the villa password, the real estate agent bowed and thanked me, and even bought me 2 boxes of fresh cherries. She said that the economy was not good, but she could finally get her salary this month because of me. I sighed and only said to her, sister can tell that you are an honest person. Sister will tell you one thing, after you go home, stock up on more supplies, don't go out if you can avoid it. As soon as the real estate agent left, I contacted the master to come over. All the glass in the house was replaced with double-layer bulletproof glass. Then, excellent ceiling anti-theft fences were installed. Yes, the most important thing was the electric fence. Oh, my friend, the electric fence was not for attacking zombies, but for those few humans who could be just as heartless to their fellow beings. The sound insulation and odor insulation of this house were good, but I still wasn't so I asked the masters to strengthen the sound and odor insulation for me, to the extent that even the zombies would find it boring and walk around. The masters laughed at me, saying that I had too much money and was too paranoid, always afraid of being targeted. I wiped my tears and said that I had just been diagnosed with severe mental illness in the hospital. The doctor told me to stay alone and not go out to cause trouble for others. I also showed the masters the scar on the back of my head that looked like a centipede. I said that I had had a skull operation and must rest well to avoid any further problems. The masters never talked to me again after that, and they all ran away faster than each other after finishing the work. Before I could sit down and rest, the phone rang. I thought it was Jonathan, who had finally woken up after sleeping in and found that I was not there, calling me unexpectedly. It was Jason. He was also one of Jonathan's friends, but he was a rather silent person. I had never seen him in a relationship. I always thought he was the gay one, so I had always treated him as a male sister. As soon as I answered the phone, there was a lot of concern and greetings. Finally, he asked me, Lila, can we have lunch together at noon, even at night? It's okay too, for, of course I chose not to have a meal at any of those time periods. What's there to eat? The end of the world is coming soon, and there's no time to think about such things. Had another project scheduled for the afternoon, and I couldn't afford to delay it. I only told Jason to pack his luggage and come to my safe house to find me. When he heard about this place, he thought I was going to have a tryst with him, and he stammered, not daring to agree. I couldn't help laughing. It was really hard to imagine that in my previous life, after I was pushed out of the vehicle by Jonathan, it was Jason who jumped out of the vehicle without hesitation to save me. While protecting me, he loudly told me that he loved me, and then half of his head was bitten off by the zombies. But everything happened so quickly at that time, and the scene was too bloody. How could I feel touched? There was only resentment and unwillingness in my heart, but Jason, I regarded his feelings for me as deep sisterly affection. Who could have thought that he really liked me? I'll just say one thing. If you trust me, come and find me. I hung up the phone, sent him the address, and just then the doorbell rang. It was the 4 sets of solar generators, 2 sets of water purification equipment I had just bought, and the supermarket shelves that just filled the basement. I didn't expect the masters to come so quickly to assemble them. I was very satisfied and gave them nearly 20% more labor costs. After finishing all these things, it was already 5 p.m. I looked at my phone from time to time. Good. Jonathan, you haven't called me even once until now. Wait a moment. On second thought, it was true. On this day in my previous life, Jonathan got up earlier than me. He kissed and hugged me, and prepared a rich breakfast for me. Then he told me that it was his rare day off, so he made an appointment to go out and play with his friends. He had always treated me very well and listened to me, so of course I let him go. Then, for the whole day, he was like a missing person. He didn't answer my calls, didn't answer my video calls, and didn't reply to my messages. As soon as he got home in the middle of the night, he took a shower, which lasted for a full 2 hours. When I scolded him, he knelt beside the bed, his head down, crying his eyes out. I liked him, so of course I chose to forgive him. Now that I think about it, he probably had several passionate encounters with Natalie. Forget it, why bother with a dead person? I immediately made a phone call. Yes, that's right, there's no one at home now. And I've already sent you the password. Yes, there was a thief in the house before, and my husband and I were quite scared. Yes, so can the surveillance cameras be installed before tonight? Okay, thank you. I hung up the phone with satisfaction and began to plan how to stock up on supplies tomorrow. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, which startled me. I looked at the video doorbell and saw that it was Jason who came. He really brought 2 large suitcases. Seeing that he was about to call me, I quickly opened the door. Come in, come in. Quickly. 5. Jason thought that since he came to find me, it wouldn't be appropriate for him to sleep on the bed or the sofa, so he brought an inflatable bed. Could he really be a genius? But I had already placed an order for 2 thick and soft top-quality mattresses. Jason was huffing and puffing as he inflated the inflatable bed. I leaned against the wall and kept adding things to the shopping cart. After I added several boxes of soda drinks, several boxes of puffed snacks, and several boxes of the classic old brand spicy strips, a big face panted and leaned close to me. Are you going to have a party? I was so scared that I slapped him, and my phone almost flew out. As a result, Jason covered his face and looked at me pitifully. The bed, let's sit on the bed, the floor is cold. After I apologized to him, I plopped down on the inflatable bed. You know what? It was really more comfortable than the hard floor. Just as I was about to lie down, the master who installed the surveillance cameras called me. I immediately answered the phone. He said that the hidden surveillance equipment had been installed at the positions I specified, and they were all solar-powered and automatically charged. As long as there was a light source, they could be used for a very long time. I want to see how Jonathan and Natalie wither away in the countdown to their lives. After taking a long breath, I fell onto the bed. Jason looked at me, moved away from me, and curled up on the other side of the bed, and began to deal with the things at his work. That's right, because before he came, he didn't ask me why, and he directly took his annual leave. After he came, he also didn't ask me why, and he even brought 2 quilts and 2 pillows and a bunch of snacks that I usually liked to eat. He really trusted me. He also really cared about me. I saw that in the open suitcase. There were even some snacks that I rarely mentioned but really often repurchased. But do I still have the courage to start a new relationship? I'm not sure. In this life, besides seeking revenge, I also want to live safely. Let's think about other things after surviving until we reach the safe base. I suddenly thought, if I could really stay safe like this time, then what about my supernatural ability? Would it be awakened again? Lila, are you asleep? I stuck my head out of the quilt and looked at Jason. What's wrong? Jason's ears turned red. Actually, I came to see you because, I interrupted his stammering. You came to tell me that actually Jonathan is gay. He cheated on me with Natalie. When Jason heard this, he was completely stunned. 6. I couldn't stand it anymore. My mind was in a mess, and my heart was also in a mess. I turned over and sat up, shouting, quickly tell me why you came to find me. Hurry up and say it. He also seemed to be in a hurry and jumped up from the bed, because I miss you and want to see you, because I had a nightmare and dreamed that something bad happened to you. I was really scared." Before he finished speaking, 2 lines of tears appeared on his face. "Although it was just a dream, I don't want anything bad to happen to you." I didn't know what to say for a moment, but I still hugged him, while gently stroking his back. I said softly, "The world will soon be in turmoil, but we are safe here. As long as you follow me, you will also be safe. Do you trust me?" He didn't say anything. He just hugged me tighter and then nodded. The emotional part was over. There was no time for love and romance. I gave him the task of purchasing supplies, saying that it should be enough supplies for at least 2 years without going out. He reported to me every time he added something to the shopping cart: 4 large-capacity refrigerators and 4 freezers, and various kitchen utensils. He actually knew more about them than I did, from pots, pans, and bowls to ovens, bread makers, and food processors. He said he had a chef's certificate, and he could cook any cuisine or dish I wanted. Then he bought 30 bags of rice, because I don't like eating rice, 60 bags of flour and 100 bundles of dried noodles, because I like eating noodles, 100 barrels of cooking oil, and also 30 boxes each of spaghetti, vermicelli, instant noodles, luosafen, snail rice noodles, and fire chicken noodles. When he reported these to me, I smiled like a flower. Later, I was really too tired, so I left the purchasing to him alone. I also bought various whole grains, seaweed, fungus, all kinds of mushrooms, as well as things like walnuts, wolfberries, dates, tremella, longans, and lotus seeds. I'm not quite sure what some of these are for, and all kinds of seasonings, sauces, butter, and sugars. No one would object that hot pot bases and yeast powder are essential, right? Then there are milk powder and fruit and vegetable powders. They can't be in cartons because I'm worried there won't be enough space. Since I had already added soda drinks, he only added tea and coffee. I took a nap for about 2 hours. When I woke up, he was still adding things to the shopping cart. Toilet paper and sanitary napkins are used up quickly, so he bought 500 packs of each. The fact that he thought of sanitary napkins showed how considerate he was. There's no need to mention shampoo, body wash, soap, and laundry powder. In addition, he bought replacement clothes and underwear, all well-known brand classics that are comfortable to wear, since he knew I had bought 2 mattresses. He bought several sets of bed linens, for towels, blankets, and skin care products. He just bought them casually. I don't think I'll be in the mood to worry about those anyway. I paid with my fingerprint, but Jason insisted on transferring the money to me. He said that since he was already living in my house, he couldn't just freeload. His words reminded me of Jonathan. I told him that he would be in charge of cooking in the future, and then he didn't transfer the money after I placed the order. The supermarket didn't call right away. They called after Jason and I took a short nap. They assumed I was a merchant restocking and said they would give me several large value vouchers, hoping I would visit more often in the future. I used them all to exchange for purified water. After sorting all this out, Jason and I lay on the neatly arranged mattresses respectively. Of course, Jason was the one who tidied up the mattresses. Just as I closed my eyes, I heard Jason whispering on the phone. "Grandma, I'll come to see you at noon, same place. Remember to wait for me." I opened my eyes in a start. That's right, Jason's grandma. 7. Jason's family situation is complicated. He was raised by his grandma with great hardship. My family situation is equally complicated. My parents weren't accepted by their families. After getting married, they left and started a new life far away, but they were deeply in love, and I grew up in happiness. However, during my school years, a sudden plane crash separated me from them forever. But the happy childhood and the selfless love my parents gave me are my strength to face all the difficulties in life. I'm confident in everything and have been actively creating a good life. Later, I met Jonathan. His original family was also happy, so I thought he was a good person. He pursued me and insisted on being with me despite his family's opposition. Remembering my parents, I was eventually moved by his so-called sincerity. Unexpectedly, it was my oversight that allowed Jonathan to take advantage. In my previous life, we were a group of young people who took Jason's grandma with us at first. Later, Jonathan led the others in rejecting Jason's grandma, thinking the old lady was a burden. Jason voluntarily left our group with his grandma. I had an argument with Jonathan because of this. Jonathan just coldly said to me, If you keep arguing, the next one to be kicked out will be you. Before I could react, Jonathan hugged me and apologized and explained softly, it was my fault for being so stupid. I really thought he was being childish and saying things out of anger. I shook my head, trying to clear away the darkness in my mind. Then I looked at Jason, who was about to go out. Jason, wait a minute. He asked me if I needed him to bring anything back. I just smiled and said, bring your grandma here. Let's live together. Jason was stunned for a moment, and his eyes turned red. It's okay. I can live next door to you with her. I checked the supermarket delivery. It was very close, but there was no time to argue with him, so I shouted, being neighbors, with your mediocre skills, how can you protect your grandma? Stop talking nonsense. Bring the old lady here quickly. Sure enough, not long after Jason went out, the supermarket delivery trucks arrived one by one. More than a dozen workers were busy moving things, filling the basement and the bedrooms upstairs. But in the living room, I set up a mobile dining table, a lazy sofa, and areas for projection and video games with gamepads. This was in sharp contrast to the incautious life in my previous life. I couldn't even imagine how comfortable the days ahead would be, and I couldn't help but shed tears of joy. Tomorrow will be January 4th, and on January 7th, the world will change completely. I started to think about what was still missing, then I turned on the surveillance video. That's when I remembered that the bastard Jonathan still hasn't called me even though he found I wasn't at home. I wanted to see what he was doing behind my back. The screen showed a lot of naked men. I widened my eyes in shock. Besides the big bed where Jonathan and I usually slept, Jonathan and Natalie were flirting with each other. On the sofa, there were 3 men I didn't know having sex. In the bathroom, 2 other men I didn't know were also having sex. Damn it, they even broke my expensive skincare products. I almost fainted, but I never expected there was more. 8. When I switched the screen back to Jonathan and Natalie, they had already finished and were whispering to each other. When are you and Lila going to have a baby? Natalie pouted. You said that as soon as the baby is born, you'll divorce her and go abroad with me. How long do you expect me to wait? Jonathan kissed and hugged him. How could I lie to you? It's just that I have no sexual desire for her, so I can't make it happen. These words were like a bolt from the blue to me. No wonder Jonathan always seemed reluctant when we were intimate. Sometimes he even showed a look of disgust, but I still tried to comfort him, saying it didn't matter if it was quick or not so intense. So he was disgusted by me, disgusted because I'm a woman who doesn't meet his sexual orientation, but he was also eager to have a child, saying that if he didn't leave an heir for the Jonathan family, he would feel guilty. So why did he have to ruin my life? You can pay some money and find someone to have a child. Why do you have to have one with her? Natalie said coquettishly, pretending to be angry. Jonathan stroked his cheek. Silly, look at Lila. She's beautiful and smart. She's in good health and rarely gets sick. She doesn't even have menstrual pain. Her genes are excellent. Why wouldn't I want a child with good genes? Besides, Lila has no parents. There's no one to support her. She probably thinks I'm her only legal family member. Look at the current marriage law. I'll be in the right and benefit no matter what. Looking at Jonathan's unfamiliar face on the screen, I felt a chill down my spine. This was the man who had pursued me for a year and lived with me for 2 years after marriage. This was the man who sweet talked me, spent only my money, and only wanted my womb. He didn't love me. He just wanted a child with good genes. I wiped away the tears on my face and turned off the video. After this, the Lila from my previous life was truly dead. Now, only the Lila in this life will continue to be happy. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. I looked at the video doorbell and saw that Jason and his grandma had arrived. I opened the door and welcomed them in. Grandma's eyesight was poor. She said she had already had surgery, but it didn't help much. As soon as she came in, she held my hand tightly with her warm and rough hands. She said she was finally meeting the friend Jason often talked about and thanked me for taking care of Jason. In fact, I should be the one thanking her for raising Jason so well. Grandma took her walking stick and slowly went to explore the house. Jason just stared at me and asked me what was wrong. I took his hand and asked, next, you'll face some harsh truths. Can you accept them? He didn't understand, but his ears turned red as he followed me to the surveillance video. I showed him the video. The screen was filled with even more explicit scenes than before. After seeing it, he immediately turned bright red, then turned his back to the screen and started talking to himself. I know sexual orientation is fluid and free, but my sexual orientation is you, Lila. Even if you tell me now that you're an alien, it's too late. I'll still like you, think about you, and want to hug you. I couldn't help but laugh. Girls, who understands? It seems I found pure love. 9. When Jason calmed down, he finally realized that the main characters in the video were two of his good friends. First, he was shocked by Jonathan's infidelity during marriage. Then he was confused that the person Jonathan cheated with was Natalie. Jonathan and I were college roommates. I knew he was bisexual back then. But I never thought he would just be after a fake marriage. According to Jason, Jonathan was also popular with classmates and teachers in college. He had both boyfriends and girlfriends. Jonathan's excellent acting skills deceived everyone. Then Jason suddenly understood. So the person Jonathan sometimes said he was going to meet was actually Natalie. He seemed to remember some details, but after looking at me, he gave me a sympathetic and apologetic look. I just waved my hand and said, "It's okay." Then I turned off the screen and said, "Let's think about what else is missing in our safe house." We discussed with Grandma and finally decided on a step-by-step plan. First, we dealt with garbage disposal. I bought a powerful garbage shredder that can shred all household waste. Jason found a renovation master who installed a direct pipeline to the underground drainage system in the house. Then we considered the storage and source of perishable foods like vegetables and fruits. With Grandma's advice, we bought a lot of vegetable and fruit seeds, as well as all the equipment and raw materials for hydroponics. The entire sunny platform in the attic could be used for a small-scale farm. Grandma also said we should buy some beans and bittern so she could make tofu, ice jelly, and cold noodles. On January 5th, Grandma stayed at home to set up the small farm on the platform. Jason and I went out to buy a large amount of meat, vegetables, and fruits. When we got home, we sorted them and filled the freezers. Yes, we also froze eggs, duck eggs, goose eggs, etc. Jason said that if people don't exercise and stay indoors all the time, they'll get depressed. So in the afternoon, we bought 2 running generators. Just an hour of running every day can not only make us exercise and sweat but also generate enough electricity for cooking. Grandma's eyesight is poor, but her legs and feet are still agile. She can take a slow walk if she wants to. Jason also bought a lot of solar lights, which can absorb energy during the day and provide light at night. I bought 2 drones, a high-powered telescope, as well as chainsaws, axes, knives, ropes, gasoline, solid alcohol, etc. Grandma said we must have medicine, so we bought 2 cabinets full of it. Basically, there's medicine for every possible symptom we can think of. In addition, we needed spiritual nourishment. Jason and I, 2 young people, spent one night downloading thousands of movies and tens of thousands of novels and saved them on 4 computers. Of course, I bought all the existing console games, even the ones I used to criticize severely. We bought 2 sets of gamepads and VR equipment for Jason and me to use. As the sky was about to lighten, it was already 5 a.m. On January 6th, I carried the sleeping Jason and Grandma on my back and went to the car dealership. In my previous life, I was only 3 kilometers away from the safe base. In this life, I want to design an ultimate invincible battle vehicle to ensure I can reach the safe base safely. If I could stay in the safe house all the time, I definitely wouldn't want to take risks outside. But as far as I know, basically, everywhere except the safe base will fall sooner or later. After all, the safe base has complete equipment to resist external zombies and maintain internal survival cycles. 10. I arrived at the car dealership on time and gave the password to the boss. The boss took me to the VIP basement. When we opened the door, I saw an ultimate invincible battle vehicle that met my expectations. The outside of the car has stealth coating and an electric fence. The front and rear of the car have collision-resistant shovels. Inside the car, there are hidden food storage cabinets and cabinets for various weapons and mechanical equipment. When the seats are laid down, they become comfortable beds. The roof is covered with solar panels, so there's no need to worry about refueling. The base of the car is high, and it's even waterproof, so it won't leak. When driving through water, the tires at the bottom of the car are strong and not easy to be damaged, and they can easily crush anything. The most important thing is that the entire car is made of lightweight materials, and the wheels are equipped with sound-proof devices. With the boss and her professional team, I felt completely at ease. The battle vehicle was transported back to my house. And I also bought the large truck that transported it. The truck was connected to my enclosed backyard. This way, when we evacuate, we can directly enter the large truck, then we can load the battle vehicle with the supplies we need for the journey, get on the battle vehicle, drive out of the large truck, and head to the safe base. While I was watching the renovation master connect the backyard to the large truck with satisfaction, Jason and Grandma came out and asked me what was going on. I gave a brief explanation. Grandma trusted me completely and went back to the attic to work on the small farm. Jason stayed and helped me with the tidying up. Near noon, after we finished our work and were about to go inside to rest, suddenly, my phone rang. It was Jonathan calling. When Jason saw it, he left on his own. He took the cooked food to the attic to have lunch with Grandma. I answered the phone, and the voice on the other end was trembling. Lila, do you know everything? I thought. Jonathan must have run out of money and was urgently looking for the bank card. Then he saw that the money had been inexplicably transferred to my card. I sneered. Oh, so you remember me now, young master. You've been having a great time with Natalie these past few days, haven't you? The other end immediately started crying. Lila, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Listen to my explanation. We're really just good friends. He just sees me as an older brother. We have no other relationship. Please come home. Don't divorce me. I was tired of it and interrupted him directly. I'm not going to divorce you. The crying tone on the other end suddenly disappeared. Really? I could even imagine his expression, with the corners of his mouth harder to suppress than an AK. Of course, I will never get a divorce. The person on the other end started chattering. Baby, I knew you still love me. I love you too. I immediately said. I only recognize being a widow. The other end was stunned. What, Lila? What are you talking about? I hung up the phone, feeling nothing but exhilaration in my heart. I deleted and blocked everything related to Jonathan. The zombie virus was about to sweep in. Jonathan definitely couldn't have imagined that the confusion and suffering of this night were just a small appetizer. When I put down my phone and picked up the chopsticks to eat, my whole hand couldn't stop shaking. How could I easily forget the emotions I had once invested? After all, people have feelings, but at the moment, excitement outweighed sadness, because from now on, I could love myself wholeheartedly. 11. Before going to bed, I specifically instructed Jason and Grandma, starting from January 7th and in the days that followed, the three of us must always live here. We should completely cut off contact with the outside world and have no more attachment to it. Grandma said it was already very good to be with Jason. In my previous life, 2 months after we abandoned Jason and Grandma, we met them again during our escape. I vowed that this time I must save them, otherwise I wouldn't use my supernatural ability either. Jonathan was forced into a corner and had no choice but to help. As a result, too many zombies came, and our weapons at that time were either broken or damaged, and we simply couldn't deal with them. I held Grandma with one hand and Jason with the other. Unexpectedly, Grandma smiled at me. Thank you, Lila. She shook off my arm and with all her strength, pushed Jason onto the car. In the end, she was overwhelmed by the zombies. To ensure our successful escape, she endured the pain and sang loudly to attract the blocking zombies. Keep going, don't look back. I looked up again and saw Jason and Grandma beside me, leaning against each other. I couldn't hold back and hugged them too. Who would have thought that Grandma would hug me even tighter? Thank you, Lila. Thank you. I've never lived in such a big and bright house before. After it got late at night, I kept looking at the time and couldn't fall asleep for a long time. Jason whispered that he had made a sleep aid soup and would heat it up and bring it to me. After drinking the soup, I did feel much more drowsy. Jason kept a distance from me and just said softly, I'll make your favorite breakfast. See you in the morning. My eyelids grew heavy, and I really fell into a deep sleep. In the darkness, I felt shadows beside me. Finally, low growls surrounded me, and countless hands reached out towards me. I saw empty black eye sockets and bright red lips and teeth. How could this be possible? Should have already escaped. I just felt them tearing at me and splitting my head apart. Then something in my head seemed to explode. I could feel the ground shaking, and I saw it. I saw it all. A large number of zombies from the neighboring urban area were surging towards us. I could sense them, and even sense them from a greater distance. What time was it now? Move quickly. My body, open your eyes quickly. My body, after waking up with a start, I saw Jason with tears streaming down his face. He was holding me and constantly wiping the blood from my nostrils with a warm towel. It's all my fault. That soup is what Grandma usually drinks. I thought anyone who couldn't sleep could drink it. It's all my fault. Please don't leave me, Lila, don't leave me. I raised my hand to wipe his tears. He put the towel into a dark red basin, hugged me even tighter, and cried even louder. I patted his back gently and glanced out the window. The dawn was just breaking. I let out a sigh of relief. My supernatural ability had returned, and we were all safe in the house. I was just busy comforting Jason. Don't wake Grandma up. Let's go to the attic for a while. Jason still looked at me worriedly, but I focused my attention on the outside of the window. The scene through the telescope was still peaceful, so the distance I sensed was even farther. As soon as I took my eyes off the telescope, I saw Jason beside me, who was about to feed me. I smiled and said, "It's okay. This is just an after effect." I lifted the scar at the back of my head, which was left by the plane crash. Jason nodded and insisted on feeding me. There was really only concern and warmth in his eyes. Well, it was almost 8 o'clock. Grandma and Jason were fertilizing beside me. I was still by the telescope. Suddenly, I saw a crowd undulating up and down, surging towards us like a dark and terrifying wave. Here they come. They're here. The ground began to shake slightly. Jason thought it was an earthquake and pulled me and Grandma to go downstairs. I shook my head and told them not to worry. Then I asked Jason to come and take a look through the telescope. The wriggling crowd was like sardines packed tightly in a can, jostling against each other. Even with broken arms and legs, it didn't stop them from rushing in the same direction. Jason put down the telescope and looked at me in disbelief. I just nodded and said, "The turmoil has begun." They were moving very fast and had already flowed past our house like running water. The low growls and heavy footsteps soon drowned out our house. The black shadows passed by the anti-theft bars outside our window again and again, leaving behind patterns like the black and white keys of a piano on the glass. When Grandma saw them, she immediately lowered her head and continued digging the soil, muttering constantly, "The ghost soldiers are passing through. Living people should retreat. We have no intention of disturbing." Just as I had sensed, this wave of zombies passed by us at 8 o'clock. Now we were making lunch, and the end of their group was still out of sight, but my soundproof and odor-proof decoration was working. They really just bypassed us. The anchors on various news channels called it a mass riot by lawless elements. The radio and mobile phone text messages reminded all citizens again and again to find a favorable place to hide as soon as possible and wait for government rescue. There were even bloggers and anchors who immediately spread bloody live videos of the scene on the internet. The ground was covered with blood. There were broken limbs everywhere, and there were cries and screams all around. When Jason and I were washing the dishes, Grandma was making ice jelly beside us. Before enjoying the ice jelly, I set up a VR virtual environment for Grandma and let her eat the ice jelly while wearing the VR device. Jason and I ate the ice jelly while playing video games with gamepads. Suddenly, I saw a surveillance video pop up on the computer. "Here comes the video." A video to watch while eating. I paused the game and took a few packs of puffed snacks, spicy strips, and an iced soda. 13. Jonathan and Natalie were not stupid. They also filled their house with supplies. Jonathan cooked as usual and made a steaming table of 4 dishes and 1 soup. It was very fancy. The two of them, from the kitchen to the dining table, kept exchanging glances and flirting with each other. Fortunately, I had downloaded a mosaic module in advance, so when some inappropriate scenes appeared, the video would automatically put a mosaic on them for me. Okay, after the two of them finished their meal, the video was all mosaicked. When the mosaic disappeared, the two of them were snuggling together. "Don't be afraid. The news said that the government won't give up on us." Natalie pouted. "What am I afraid of? I just feel sorry for you being deceived by that woman. She has such a cruel heart. She even took the bank card away. Everyone knows that she must be keeping a gigolo outside behind your back." Jonathan smiled and said, "No, she's a soft-hearted person. When the disaster is over and everything is stable, she will definitely come back to me." I was left speechless. These two lovebirds, I kind of shipped them, but the things they bought were just like themselves. They looked good but were of no real use. Those boxes of instant noodles, although they stacked up to form a wall, were definitely not enough for 2 men to eat. They did buy rice, but only a few big bags. The frozen food seemed to fill the refrigerator, but in fact, after unpacking, there were only enough for a few meals. They were smart enough to prepare a few buckets of water, but they weren't completely smart. The amount of water in those buckets would at most last for half a month for drinking and cooking. As I remembered, Jonathan was like a water buffalo and could drink a lot. If I'm not mistaken, in that community, the water inlet valve would be damaged by the zombie horde before tonight. Once the water supply stopped, the two of them would really suffer after eating the ice jelly. Grandma said she wanted to take a nap. Jason came and asked me what I wanted to eat in the evening. I said that after eating all the salty snacks and soda, I wanted something light in the evening. Jason readily agreed and went into the kitchen to wash the fruits and vegetables. He made a fruit salad, fresh fruit juice, and even a fruit porridge. As it was getting dark, after Grandma woke up, she drank the warm fruit and vegetable porridge, a low-sugar version. I drank the iced fruit porridge and finished the salad. We saved the fresh fruit juice for a midnight snack, to go with the spicy snacks. When I opened the surveillance video again, it was still shaking with mosaics. Suddenly, there was a loud dong 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 sound in the video, which scared the two of them half to death. They were both running around naked, so two moving mosaics went to the door. It turned out that the neighbor across the door had been broken into by the zombies. Then the zombified neighbor came to smash on Jonathan's door. Jonathan and the other person immediately sealed the gaps in the door frame with transparent tape. They were somewhat smart. After the zombies at the door slowly left, Jonathan and the other person slowly started to get intimate at the door. Then the screen was filled with mosaics again. 14. The shocking thing was that they were shouting inside the door while the zombies were roaring outside. I couldn't hold back my laughter. There really were people who were seeking their own death. Suddenly, Jason called me to do some light exercise. I closed the video and went to the exercise room with Jason. We chatted and walked and ran for more than 10 kilometers on the electricity-generating treadmill. We accumulated a few degrees of electricity and also worked up a sweat from the exercise. Sure enough, after exercising, I felt much more relaxed. When I went to the attic and took a look, there were only a few wandering zombies near us, because most of the zombies had gone to the bustling urban areas full of sounds and smells. While I was looking down and observing the soft soil, Jason came upstairs and called me softly. Lila, a surveillance video popped up on your computer. I nodded, not showing any intention of going downstairs to watch it. Jason added, it's very chaotic in the video. It might already be. As soon as I heard that, I immediately went downstairs to check. Just as Jason had said, the scene in the video was because Jonathan and Natalie had made too much noise. It attracted the zombies one after another and also aroused the anger of the other neighbors who wanted to go out for help but were blocked inside the door by the zombies. Everyone was swearing at each other in the video. Then I looked at the surveillance in the corridor and saw the zombies wandering back and forth following the sound. Only more and more zombies were surging up from the stairway. They rushed towards the door with the loudest sound. That door was right next to Jonathan's. The door was fragile and already scarred, and it was directly broken through by the zombies. Screams replaced the curses. As soon as Jonathan heard that the neighbor next door had fallen, he immediately took Natalie and hid in the bedroom. They were scared because the windows of the neighbor's house and their house faced each other. There was a narrow platform between the windows. If the zombies squeezed out of the windows, they would directly break into Jonathan's house. They should have realized the danger and were preparing to find something to seal and block that window. Who would have thought that while they were sealing the window, the neighbor who was being eaten by the zombies and was on the verge of death appeared on the window glass opposite. When the neighbor saw Jonathan and the other person, a terrifying smile appeared on his face. He actually opened the window with his own hands and then fell down along with the zombies. Some of the zombies that didn't fall down squeezed towards Jonathan and Natalie along the platform. Jonathan picked up a broom and protected Natalie behind him. Unexpectedly, the window that had just been sealed was no match for the group of zombies. Even if the zombies were cut in half, they still squeezed past the table and sofa blocking the window and crawled towards Jonathan and Natalie. Finally, more and more zombies poured in, and their strength pushed aside the table, sofa, and cabinet. Originally, Jonathan and Natalie were both fighting, but when Natalie saw more and more zombies, he pushed Jonathan towards the zombie horde. This scene, I didn't know how to react. Tears welled up in my eyes and streamed down my face, but I was smiling. Jonathan, you finally got what you deserved. 15. Jonathan was soon overwhelmed by the zombie horde, and Natalie hid in the bedroom with a mop in his hand. What good would the bedroom door do? He pushed the bed against the door and then wanted to run from the balcony to another seemingly quiet and safe balcony. The distance was only about 1.5 meters, and he could jump over it, but he just didn't dare. The zombie horde quickly squeezed into the bedroom and rushed towards the balcony. It was too late when Natalie jumped up. The zombie horde collapsed the balcony, and Natalie didn't jump high enough. When he desperately lunged towards the safe platform, the zombies behind him grabbed his leg. The next second, he fell down together with the zombies. I closed the video. I thought I would never open this surveillance video again. Jason silently brought me the snacks and fresh fruit juice that I had just said I wanted for a midnight snack. Seeing that I didn't say anything, he wanted to leave quietly. I grabbed his arm. Do you remember the car in the backyard? Jason nodded. I stood up and continued. Later, I will take you and Grandma to the real safe human base. You will trust me, right? He placed my hand on his beating heart. I have always trusted you. In that instant, the scene from my previous life seemed to overlap with the current scene. In my previous life, our group was planning to seize a vehicle and go to the human safe base, but Jonathan and the others didn't fully believe in my supernatural ability. They thought that the reason I could take them to some safe places was just because they were lucky. The night before our departure, Jonathan said to me, "If this fails, how many lives can you bear the responsibility for, Lila?" I was under a lot of pressure and very anxious. When I was standing in the cold wind, Jason came up and brought me a bottle of mineral water, but the mineral water was slightly warm. It was as if it had been kept warm all the time. At that time, I thought he had also come to persuade me to change the plan. I just said, "I've made up my mind, even if I'm alone, I will go there to get the car." Jason nodded. "I will help you. I won't hold you back." I looked at him. "Do you trust me?" His eyes were as bright as stars. "I have always trusted you." I hugged him. He seemed to be stunned for a moment and then reciprocated my hug. After the water and electricity supply were cut off, the network and signal also gradually deteriorated. There were no more real-time news reports. Only a mechanical voice told everyone to stay at home and wait for government rescue. But as far as I knew, we could only take the initiative to go to the human safe base, because there were no longer enough resources and power to support the government in rescuing people everywhere. The fact that the government could still send drones to deliver supplies was already a good thing, but it was not a long-term solution. I was finally overwhelmed by the zombie horde and devoured completely. The three of us, I, Jason, and Jason's grandma, lived self-sufficiently in the cozy safe house for 1.5 years, just like in my previous life. After 1.5 years, the radio began to publicize the address of the human safe base. We loaded the battle vehicle with supplies and weapons, as well as mobile power supplies, detachable solar panels, and a series of mechanical equipment. Then the battle vehicle drove out of the backyard. All the way, I looked at the map and sensed the number of zombies nearby at the same time, and Jason was in charge of driving day and night. We traveled for nearly 7 days, and I finally saw what the human safe base looked like. The towering fortress, with only the large beams of light scanning the ground back and forth swaying in the white fog. The three of us went through layers of inspections and were finally recognized. This time, I finally entered the safe base, because I had used my supernatural ability for a long time. When the soldiers led us to our family room, I fainted and fell to the ground. When I woke up again, there was a sleepy-looking Jason beside me. He hugged me, and I hugged him. I asked about Grandma. It turned out that Grandma had already applied to join the Ministry of Agriculture and was now busy. Just because of Grandma's eyesight, the soldiers didn't force her to do a heavy workload, but Jason wanted to be in the same department as me after I recovered, so during the time I was in a coma, he did everything and went wherever there was a shortage of people, but he didn't have a fixed position. After I recovered, I found that my supernatural ability was still there, so I didn't hesitate to apply to join the outgoing rescue department. Generally, it was a team led by 2 to 3 professional soldiers with 4 or 5 ordinary citizens. Jason and I were in the same team. I could finally do something with the help of my supernatural ability. Before the first mission, I looked at Jason and said, "We will come back safely together with the rescue targets." Jason looked at me tenderly and said, "I believe in us."